Being in a picture with someone who's a bad guy, a sexual predator, in and of itself is not a crime of anything. One would think that the victims would like to have turned the page on this a long time ago. Why does this all need to be vomited up again? That's where I weigh in.
Randy, first of all, I think we'd like to consider the build-up to today and today's deadline, which has been dramatic in its own right, hasn't it? We've had these batches of photos released, the most recent one just a few hours ago, where 68 new images were released by Democrats to the world, really, and trying to satisfy this curiosity as to how Jeffrey Epstein operated.
And I think what you are describing is telling. And I think that this drama and this kind of slow water torture works in inverse proportion to the importance of the evidence and what this evidence is supposed to lead to. What is the end game here? Typically, evidence is supposed to lead to some kind of a prosecution or some kind of an exoneration from prosecution. Here, we have the release of evidence with seemingly absolutely no end game. What is all of this supposed to lead to? Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ms. Maxwell is already in jail. Prince Andrew has been reduced to mortality. Uh, Being in a picture with someone who's a bad guy, a sexual predator, in and of itself is not a crime of anything. One would think that the victims would like to have turned the page on this a long time ago. Why does this all need to be vomited up again? That's where I weigh in.
Yeah, I understand that point of view. I suppose if I could put this to you, having spoken to an attorney for some of Jeffrey Epstein's victims in the past, she has always said that actually victims are eager for those who know anything to talk about what they know. And in that context, they were kind of laying that at the door of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, because there is a question about these powerful, primarily men, who were circulating in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit, and actually how silent they have been. Do they know anything? Can they tell us something and shed new light on what was going on?
Well, I'm hard pressed to understand how releasing of these photographs is going to cause these powerful people to come forward. And again, typically, when law enforcement is conducting an investigation, photographs are not randomly sent out a bit at a time, a bit at a time, a bit of a time, redacted, unredacted. This seems to be more of a show. This seems to be more of political lawfare, where the Republicans are looking to humiliate and embarrass Democrats who may be photographed or people with connections to the Democrats to embarrass and humiliate them. The Democrats are doing exactly the opposite, hoping to humiliate those in power in the Republican Party. How in God's name does this further anyone's interests other than it's almost like children, as opposed to the most powerful people in this country, if not on the planet, who one would think should be by now above this nonsense and more concerned about the affairs of our country domestically and abroad.
I suppose the contention, Randy, is around whether we feel like we know everything. And President Trump himself campaigned to become president again on the premise that perhaps we didn't know everything. He was talking about releasing the Epstein files throughout his campaign since he came to office, and indeed it's him that signed the legislation that has made Friday the 19th of December, that has made today a deadline for such a release. It's fascinating, this sort of global curiosity and dissatisfaction that there has been looking at the Epstein case and saying, we don't know everything and we would like to know everything.
It is not the job of law enforcement to, I think the word is satiate. And if it's not, what I'm trying to say is it is not for law enforcement to feed the appetite of the curious. I remember when Princess Diana passed, that it went beyond morbid curiosity. It was insanity. I never really understood what the concept rubbernecking was until I was much older, and it's exactly what it sounds like. There's an accident, and everybody is straining to see what happened. So here, this curiosity, law enforcement doesn't have to address that or take care of that. If that were the case, then every press conference held by law enforcement would just simply take everything we've got and here it is for the public. That would defeat the entire purpose of actually doing an investigation and trying to put together a case. We don't operate like that. And law enforcement is not supposed to be kowtowing to the almost prurient interests of people with, I guess, nothing better than to know what's going on. How does that further any end at all, other than, again, we have this morbid, weird fascination with these disgusting things? If it's not going to lead to people being held accountable and responsible and bringing justice to the victims, what is the point of all of this? This is just like one never-ending National Enquirer story.
Does that mean, though, Randy, that we are to assume that Ghislaine Maxwell was Jeffrey Epstein's only co-conspirator in all of this? I suppose that's the crux of the issue, is that with the photographs released, which, as you say, are no indication of wrongdoing being photographed with this man, but with the files deadline arriving now, that actually there is an assumption that he had co-conspirators who have not yet been brought to justice.
I think it's important to first be on the same page in defining what a conspiracy is and what a co-conspirator is. And in the United States, a conspiracy is an agreement by at least two people to engage in criminal offense conduct, and someone does something to further that criminal offense conduct. The crime never actually has to be completed. The essence of a conspiracy is the agreement. So, for example, if there are two people in my apartment right now and we decide that we're going to steal another guest's pocketbook, and I go and create a distraction so that other guest is not paying attention to her pocketbook, the conspiracy's been completed. We have an agreement to steal a pocketbook, and I've taken some act in furtherance of doing that. We never actually have to steal the pocketbook. So I think it is fair to say that after all of these years, the only person brought to justice was Miss Maxwell. Mr. Epstein was on his way, but then he ended up dead. So all of this time has gone by, and with some of the most sophisticated tools on the planet to bring people to justice, we have Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in jail, though her surroundings seem to be getting better as time goes by, and Jeffrey Epstein's in a box. So where are we?
Randy, always good to speak to you. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.